Cecchetti,
Vaganova,
Cecchetti,
Vaganova,
Cecchetti.
Vaganova.
We know you love seeing the differences between the Cecchetti method and the Vaganova method. So the Royal Ballet School and the Vaganova School, which I was lucky enough to go to both, as a lot of you know. Suvi has predominantly trained in the Russian technique, but obviously when she went to FMB, it was quite French, wasn't it, over there?
Yeah, there were French teachers.
A mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think also there's a lot of similarities between the Cecchetti and the French in terms of arms and preparation in fourth, etc. So probably a lot will resonate with that. So let's have a look at some of the common differences that we can see with certain steps. Okay, so one of the first ones that's super different is the fourth position.
Right.
Why don't you show us the Russian one, which obviously we're used to. Let's look
Russian
at it
one.
side on.
Side on.
Yeah.
Back leg is straight. Front leg is bent. Not too wide position. And arms are open, not round.
Yeah, and then before we would take off, what we then would do is plie on two legs, bam, and then we would go with our pirouettes. Lovely stuff. So let's explain why we both really like this.
Okay.
So why do you like this fourth position,
Well,
where the back leg is straight initially?
I like it because I feel like then it's almost impossible for me to put too much weight on my back leg. So I'm really well on the front leg. And it helps to keep this line very straight. So I'm not like this for the preparation of the turn. So I feel kind of like this part is already activated and in the position that it has to be. And then I like this extra, like I kind of force that you get from that plie. Here I feel a bit stuck somehow.
Yeah. So it's very purposeful, I feel, this fourth, because like Suvi said, you're on the front leg already. There's less work for you to do. It's kind of hard to make the mistake. And then this plie does feel like almost like the landing of a jump, like you're getting that nice power before you go, which I think is super useful. Then with the arms, instead of being rounded, obviously there's nothing wrong with this at all, but this streamlined position, I always found it helped me engage the back more, because we're kind of like really pushing down, rather than this, which you can be susceptible to curving the back if you're not careful. So still keep that sense of engagement in the spine. So that's the fourth position. Then another one, which is simply just the heads and the body at the bar. So why don't you show us the Cecchetti way, which is also kind of similar to some of the French teachers that you had. So it's quite forwards. It's quite forwards in the body. So what was some common corrections you got when you were more Vaganova with the head back? What were they looking for the more?
They just wanted to be so much more forward. And of course in Vaganova also you have to like close the ribs, but I still feel like you're kind of like what you always talk about, that the skull is on top of the tailbone. So here I felt more that the angle was like this, like almost leaning forward. That's what I felt.
And obviously because you didn't train in that method, it probably felt really weird, right?
It felt super weird, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember from Royal Ballet School, similar, like you had to be very, very sort of up and over like that. And so I found when we went to Russia, and I always had a Russian coach on the weekends and throughout my childhood, but I was constantly sort of going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. But then when we went to Russia, we had constantly this sense of, oh no, you must be so pulled up, especially because we're on the slope, remember? And so what I found was the glutes could activate so much more because you were so on top of yourself. And I do think it helps with pirouettes because you're so straight and on your leg when you eventually turn. Then along with the heads, so obviously Vaganova is so embellished. You know, the head is like there when we finish. The head is also not on a diagonal, it's directly to the side. So you really work your neck and you're always lifting the chin when you go devant, for example. And we often look to the side most of the time, you know, unless you're super young and you do everything kind of here and maybe once here, so you feel more framed. But as you get older, the side view is the most optimum, so we tend to have everything facing the side. And I always found the English style is still very nice, but it's more conservative. So you found yourself looking on the diagonal more. You know, same with the arms. It was more like you were looking with elbows a little here and looking out more like this, rather than elbows wide and looking directly to the side. So it's just a much prouder position, but I think it looks more, I want to say passionate almost. A prouder pose.
It's a prouder pose.
Yeah. Then let's move on to tombe pas de bras and chassé pas de bras from the corner. So I'll show the Royal Ballet one.
Okay.
Maybe you can go from that corner.
Okay.
So the chassé pas de bras we would often do would be literally chassé pas de bras, like this, to the fourth position. And then we prepare. What's funny is even though we're used to preparing like this, we would still then go through that allongé as we went into it, rather than the Vaganova one starts there. But in general, I found the Cecchetti one was much more grounded into the floor, a lot about being sort of down and juicy into the ground. So it's sort of like ya ta ta ta. Whereas Vaganova, I feel like, presents the feet a little bit more, and it's more about the line of the leg the whole time.
And there's this almost like little hop in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And we often use the opposite arm.
Yes. So, da-rum, bum, bum, bum.
And then ta
Ta.
yeah. Yeah, really nice, really nice. But it kind of embellishes that nice pose of the foot and the upper body there, rather than chassing through fourth. So the Cecchetti one was more this way, which I think is most common when you go to drop-in classes or open classes. They would often do this instead of this. But regardless whether I went to a class that was by a different technique of teacher, I would always do the arm they want.
Right.
You know, like we do.
Yeah.
But if they said, oh, chassé pas de bras, I think I would always nonetheless do tombe pas de bras. Because we never did chassé.
Never.
Ever.
I don't remember a single time.
No, even when we would do pas de bras to a lunge, you know, we wouldn't do, for example, ta yam pum. We would go pum pum pum. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Always about presentation. I don't ever remember doing this.
No.
Chassé.
No.
Always about presenting the foot before you step on it. Show the foot. Show the foot. Show the beautiful lower leg. Ah, that's it. Exactly.
And the arabesques also, aren't
Correct.
they kind of like higher in the...
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you show us the Russian ones? So first arabesque.
Here.
Which is very, very shoulder level. This right in front. This, I would say, we aim for here, but just a little slightly, but keeping shoulders square. Yeah.
Well, this is like school, young people, right?
Yeah.
But then in the stage, of course, you want a little bit maybe open if you have...
Yeah. It's not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not going to be pont.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit like this, but... and then the second arabesque. Yeah, and I think what's so identifiable with the Vaganova method is the head. You doing the head here. So it's as you can see, it's always back. So you see the nice long neck. And the arms are always just below the shoulder because it really kind of highlights then the neck and the head. Whereas when we lift the arms higher, it kind of covers this line a little bit. Yeah, exactly. And even the fourth arabesque as well. Yeah, exactly. Fourth arabesque. So you could use probably this tendu, yeah. And then it's all about showing the flatness of the back whilst keeping these two arms on the same level with a slight softness in the elbows. Yeah, beautiful. So then the Cecchetti one is obviously just slightly different. We always found that the arms were just a little bit higher in first arabesque, so that the head kind of looks up a little bit more. It's more like that. And then second arabesque, again, it's like not directly to the side. And then fourth arabesque as well, it's like that.
Is it diagonal?
Pardon?
Is it diagonal with the arms?
Yeah, diagonal, yeah. Much more diagonal.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Which actually, for me personally, it's like if the leg goes up though, it doesn't quite match where the eyeliner is, you know, whereas we would in Vaganova, as I remember, we would only really lift the arm up if we were doing some very strong releve at the end, like a very embellished pose with a very high leg. Yeah, exactly. Whereas promenade, when your leg's at 90 degrees, it's almost like the the arm should match.
Yeah.
So you're gliding around rather than there. Because if your arm's there, then you would expect your chin to be there, which then
You will
feels
expect
slightly
your leg to be there.
Yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it looks a bit funny if your leg is in 90 and you're like this. Like it doesn't fit somehow.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh boy. 90.
Yes, so if you do your nice Vaganova arm here, that's it. Yeah, stretch the knee and stuff. That's it. And then whereas if you went there and if you looked up, yeah, it's a bit different, yeah. Preparation from the corner. That's another one. Show us the beautiful Russian one from the corner. And раз, два, три. Good, good, good. Yeah, super nice. Whereas, although Cecchetti probably can also go like this, I think a lot of the time they actually go on the don. So they go yum bum 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 like this. Yeah. Even over the top sometimes. Even over the top.
I recognize this one. I have seen this one a lot.
Yeah, tons. Yeah, so it kind of goes a lot of the time on the don, which because we're so used to, I mean, I love Cecchetti. It looks so beautiful on lots of dancers, but because I'm so used to the Vaganova now, this kind of feels like almost, it's the opposite of what I want to do, going on the don to then go forwards. Whereas this I like because it kind of feels like I'm turning out, kind of feels like I'm going and turn out everything before we then transition into the next step. Yeah.
Yeah, both styles are beautiful, but I think if you have trained your whole life in Vaganova, then Cecchetti will feel weird and vice versa.
Yeah, I think also some dancers who watch our videos, they don't actually know what method they're in. So it might be interesting if you see that, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing, or that's what my teacher's been making me do, then maybe you'll identify more with whether, I don't know, maybe you're doing a mixture of stuff, or maybe you're like, oh, yes, I am actually doing Cecchetti. There's another one that I remember very well, which is the sixth put de bras in the center, which is the sixth put de bras in Vaganova method. It wouldn't be necessarily the sixth put de bras in Cecchetti because they don't work quite like that. But it's the legs predominantly, and also the curvature of the spine. Okay, why don't you show the Cecchetti one, which happens a lot in, again, drop-in classes and company class, probably a lot. That's not a Russian company, you know, or a Russian train company. So often you would create in fourth position and then around we go. Yeah. Even sometimes dancers can get quite contemporary with it and really like curve the spine and do all this and things like that. So the Russian one is so different. Yeah. The back leg's really straight, and we often prepare by circling the wrist, looking up, and then we lunge down. The arm comes to first position. We go super far down. Then you need to have a lot of strength then to push back onto a straight leg. So we don't bend the back one. We push back onto a straight leg. Then we twist, and your arms keep this nice distance between each other. So it's not so much sort of one and then the other one. There's very much a sense of keeping them not too far apart each time. Yeah. But it creates this beautiful length and drama in, for example, our Bolshoi adagios. So our grand adage, we would do very much like, and down, push back, big circle, prepare.
Also super good for strength to go all the way down and push.
Yeah, go on then. So you go wrist and down, push back, and big circle, bum bum. Yeah. Obviously, she would say more back bends, more back, more. But we haven't done class yet today, so we're not so good. Yeah, exactly. But it's honestly, I love it. So nice to do. Good. Another good one for the ladies is the passe arms. I would say in Vaganova, if we weren't doing something like this or bending over like this, we would often just keep the arms still and use a lot of épaulement, maybe opening this way. Whereas I think in the Cecchetti method, it's a lot of it's a lot of movement all the time. So it'd be like 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah.
I think I've seen French dancers also do a lot that.
They are quite similar. There's quite a lot of similarities with the French and the Cecchetti, it seems. Yeah. Do you want to show us this one again?
So Cecchetti one.
Yeah. And then the Vaganova one. Yeah, so constantly nice use of upper body and head. Yeah.
Maybe opening.
Yeah, maybe opening. Yeah, so it has a real nice elegance. But I also like this. I think, though, when you're going quick, it almost feels like there's just too much going on. So if it was a nice slower tempo. Also, one thing to note is probably the Vaganova method wouldn't go very high, much higher than just below your shoulder when we did this. But I think Cecchetti tends to go a little bit higher, so it can be a little bit more wafty in the arms.
I feel like in general, all this stuff is a bit lower in Vaganova style than it. Like it would not go past that point.
Yeah, no, it's always about keeping the shoulders and upper body and really kind of framed in the shoulders as well. Like very accurate as well with where it goes, rather than we might do this but not be aware of where's the end pose.
Right.
You know? It's quite Baroque, this. It's still nice though. And then one thing I've noticed is the arms when we jump. So in the French technique and also Cecchetti, it would be sort of more like glissade here, assemblé, glissade here, assemblé. Whereas the Russian one was very glissade and then collect the arms as you go into the jump. Yes, because the dynamic of the second leg into the jump along with the arms was very important coordination, basically, to help you get off the ground. Whereas keeping them here in the Vaganova method seemed counterproductive because there was nothing really helping us get off.
Here you come.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think Cecchetti was more focused on the swish of the floor more than anything. Yeah. And then one final thing I think is so obvious to everybody, but one thing that's noticed all the time is the turnout. Yeah. So it needs to be completely flat turned out in the Vaganova.
180.
Yeah. And that was definitely a shock to, even though we'd both trained in the Vaganova method outside of the Vaganova. You know, I'd had Russian coaches outside of the Royal Ballet School. Always a shock, though, when you go to the Vaganova school because nothing is let go. Like the supporting leg has to be turned out at all times. Your demi-point has to be turned out, flat turned out at all times. And I did feel like it made us very, very aware of our turnout, more aware than I'd ever been at the Royal Ballet School. Because obviously, you know, people tend to say it's safer turning in like this and doing, you know, tendus like this. And whilst that's definitely true, I wouldn't say this is more dangerous. I'd just say that you really, really need to know how to work properly in order to execute this. And obviously you can't go from very limited turnout to then this straight away. Like you really need to build up to that, which is why people may argue, oh, Vaganova's not safe because they've been training very much like this. To then go to this, then that's obviously going to be extreme. But again, you just need to know how to work properly in order to really maintain that.
Of course, if you do 180 but you're not using any muscles, you are just kind of sitting
Sharp.
there, everything is rolling, then it's not good for your knees and your ankles or your hips. But that's not how we should be using everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think once you understand how to work properly, then it really crafts very good knowledge of how to use the turnout. And then it's so automatic. That's why then you see these Russian dancers with this beautiful sense of turnout and beautiful lines and everything. And that's why we're pushed. But yes, hopefully you found this interesting. Let us know in the comments if there was anything additional that you want us to look at. Whether it's a type of turn, type of jump, or anything particular, let us know. And let us know also what technique you are learning in and why you enjoy it. Obviously, we're Vaganova trained, but I like to reiterate that no technique is wrong. I appreciate the Cecchetti method and the French method. a lot. I think, you know, some of the dancers I really admire are in fact French. Like I do really like the French style as well. But obviously our background is Vaganova. We adore Vaganova. We love the Russian style. We love the Russian ballerinas. So that is why we share so much about it. So hope you enjoyed. We shall see you very soon. Bye for now.